Welcome, everybody. I am so happy, so delighted to bring you Jasmine Matos, alumni of A. Philip Randolph, and she'll tell you the rest. But she is currently postpartum and in the postpartum NICU at Presbyterian, New York Presbyterian Hospital. NICU stands for the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, which I should know because I've had 4 children that have probably passed through that unit, and I should be better at saying it, but my tongue is a little bit tied. But without further ado, I want to bring in Jasmine. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're in the hospitals. You're in the most challenging probably environment in the world right now. Maybe the emergency department has a little bit rougher than you, but it's got to be hard for the mamas. I can't imagine the stress of being a mother in this environment right now, limitations on family visitations, all the challenges that go with it, the uncomfortableness of people probably walking around in spacesuits to do everything. It's got to be just wild. Before we get into like the takeaways that, we're going to talk about your story, how you got to Randolph, where you went to college, where you got your master's, and what you're doing now and how you got there. And I'm really excited because some of this I'm going to hear for the first time. And I loved you while you were in high school, and I love that you're doing well and you loved your post-Randolph graduation. So it's very cool. I'm very happy to be talking to you. So can you tell us, for everybody that's at home, hopefully watching this while they're at home, hint, hint, what would you like? How could folks help you right now and all of our front of line healthcare workers?
The best thing that you can do is just follow the protocol, okay? So stay home, stay safe. If you do need to come out, definitely try to come out only for essential errands, okay? So that's like grocery shopping or any essential items that you need at home. And if you do come out, definitely try to wear your mask as much as you can and bring hand sanitizer. You should be cleaning your hands after touching any little thing, okay? That's pretty much it. Definitely try to stay safe and stay home.
I think that advice is so great, and it's even helpful for me because I'm thinking like, do I need to sanitize my hands? So I think even that little piece of it, that's great. Thank you for that. Into the amazing adventure that has been your life. Let's start from the beginning, but just in terms of an overriding message, just to kind of focus us and sort of an overriding theme for what's going on. What kind of takeaway would you like folks to get from your story as we're telling it?
I guess my takeaway is just all of this came out of hard work and dedication. I'm just a girl from the Bronx. I couldn't even have imagined that my life is where it is now, where I'm super happy to go to work. I absolutely love my job. I love what I do. When I was younger, I couldn't have imagined being where I am now, but it took a lot of hard work, and I'm thankful that I did what I was supposed to be doing, focusing.
And I know from experience you're a hard worker, and I think that's something that it's a difficult thing for maybe a high school student that isn't used to like performing at a super high level and being pushed to the limits, but just this understanding that pushing yourself, and that's I for my own kids, I'm like trying to push them, like put that work in, and then wherever you want to go, you'll have those options open to you is a big deal. And then I know that a thing that you were mentioning before to me in terms of a takeaway was like staying open to new opportunities. You want to speak to that just a little?
Yeah, I was definitely I was trying to be as open as I could be with every opportunity that was presented to me. I remember when I went to Randolph, one of those trips was like to go see Lion King in downtown. I'm like, of course I'm gonna go. I've never had that opportunity, so I've just pretty much grabbed anything that came my way, and then I just learned all experience is good experience. So you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, big part of our story and what we're doing all the time is like make sure you examine your resources, make sure that you understand what's going on. I think a big takeaway that I'm taking from hearing a lot of folks' stories, which is great that I'm getting that right now, right, is the idea that, you know, in this adventure of life, like, don't be afraid to leap, but look before you leap. Make sure you know what you're getting into. So let's talk about the lead up to Randolph. How did Randolph get on the radar for you? How did why did you choose Randolph? Tell us about that.
So my elementary and middle school were together. So I was in the same school from kindergarten all the way up until the 8th grade. So I did have my local neighborhood high school, but I wanted to venture out. I wanted to get outside of my neighborhood and go to another place in New York City. So that's the cool part about New York, that you don't necessarily have to go to high school in your district. You can go to another borough or something for high school. So they give you like this big giant high school book, and I was searching through all the high schools, and I came across Randolph. And what I really loved about Randolph was that they had this like medical house. So it's broken up into different houses that focus on different specialties. So you have a humanities house, an engineering's house, and a medical house. So I applied to be part of the medical house, which was really awesome because I knew I wanted to be a nurse, but I didn't know, what specialty I wanted to be in, or if I wanted to be a nurse right away or so. So being in the medical house was awesome and gave me a lot of great opportunities. Um, in that program, I was allowed to see a heart surgery my freshman year through live stream, which was really awesome. And it really, really motivated me. I saw that and I was like, yes, this is for me. This is the field that I want to go in.
So I want to hear more about that. That's amazing, and I don't think that's an opportunity that every high school student gets.
No, so Randolph was able to offer that opportunities for students who were excelling in the program during their freshman year. They took us all on a school trip, and we sat in the auditorium and they live streamed the heart surgery, and we were able to ask the surgeon questions throughout the surgery. So it was really, really a great, awesome experience and super engaging.
So I know healthcare professionals are kind of busy at the moment, but after this is over, I would love to try to make sure that's happening, because that doesn't sound like something that's happening um, all the time at Randolph. Maybe I'm mistaken, but it does. I haven't heard of that before, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really awesome. I was happy to have that opportunity. I think that it would definitely put my mindset where it needed to be my freshman year of high school.
That's awesome. So you're in freshman year, and maybe I missed it. I was playing around trying to get my audio working because there was a little bit of feedback, so I'm working on that. But what other choices beyond Randolph were there?
Um, I don't really remember. It was really long ago. I do remember it was Randolph and Beacon. Yeah, it was a high school downtown Beacon. And both of those high schools were like my top two. And I ended up going with Randolph because that's where I was assigned. I think, and the way it works is that they assign you to a high school.
Yeah, no, I think Destiny was saying like Randolph was her second choice or something like that, and Beacon was her first, and she was, accepted to Randolph, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, it kind of worked out that way. And I'm happy because who knows where I would have ended up in Beacon.
Right. Yeah. No, I've heard some interesting things about Beacon, and not necessarily, I don't think when I think of Beacon, I don't think of super positive things, but I have zero experience. So I'm talking sort of weird. All right. So anyways, so you're at Randolph, freshman year is going well. Tell us about the journey towards graduation.
So freshman year is going well. I'm meeting a lot of people. I made a lot of friends. And then one of my friends was like, they have this dance team after school. You should definitely check it out, especially if you want to get involved or stuff. So I'm like, okay, like I'll check it out. So I went to my first dance practice, and it was awesome. I had so much fun. I made so many friends, and I had a really great time. And so they said, this dance program goes along with this college prep program. So in order to dance, you need to really be a part of the college prep program. So I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And I told my mom about it. And my mom was like, yes, you have to be a part of this program, Jasmine. Take advantage of it. So the cool thing about that program is that it teaches you so many skills. So I learned leadership through the dance program. I was able to be captain, practice being captain, practice running a team, organizing, a group of members for one common goal. And in addition to that, I was part of the college prep, so I was able to learn how to interview, what kind of colleges worked best for me, where would I fit in, and I was able to go on college trips. So throughout my 4 years of high school, I was part of the dance team and the college prep program. And throughout it, I made a lot of friends. I've gained so many skills. And so by the time I went to college, I felt um, not prepared in as far as the schoolwork goes, but just prepared in the sense of meeting different people, being open, being in this environment, and staying positive and motivated.
That's awesome. And in terms of being involved with World Beat, did because I seem to remember you being a leader, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I was the captain of the World Beat dance team.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was really fun. I was only a teenager at the time, but I felt good as a leader, and I definitely got so many leadership experience that I use till this day.
That's awesome. And I love those stories about things that people are utilizing, of a few of the stories. And obviously, that medical story of freshman year obviously connects to what you're doing right now. But the stories coming out of Randolph and even other things that they did, was interviewing a COSO, and she was involved with Harlem Children's Zone, and those contacts that she was making and participating in high school ended up helping her post college. So she went to Allegheny, and her experience at Allegheny wasn't the be all that she wanted it to be, but some of her contacts that she made during high school helped her out after college, which is really it's wild.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to us about junior, senior year and how you're now making choices about where you want to go.
So, yeah, I get to my junior year, and then, you have to start thinking about college. And so, this organization, the college prep program, they were like, we're offering this SAT prep course. It's really good. It's going to help you get into college. So, again, I spoke to my mom about it, and my mom said, yes, you have to do it. So, I did do the SAT prep course, and it was something that you would have to do on the weekends. I remember it was on Saturdays, and you go and you learn and you take like 5 practice tests. So by the time my SATs came around, I felt ready, and I felt like, yeah, I got this. I went to the prep courses and I scored relatively well. So I'm like starting to get all the pieces together to go to college. So I was really looking towards the future pretty early on. And so junior year was really fun. At that point, I'm comfortable in Randolph. I'm comfortable in the dance team, and also looking forward to the future. And then, yeah, I think senior
No,
year
I
was
was
more of the same
I was
stuff.
I was just going to mention, because when Charles Thompson tells this story about like Cassie and folks being in the SAT program, he always talks about me like I'm the bad guy. I was chasing after people, making sure they were doing things, but I don't really remember having to chase after you too much.
No, my mom did enough of that. So,
Because she was paying for it. Yeah,
yeah.
that was
Yeah,
that.
but it was a good program. It definitely helped me.
That's amazing. Yeah, so we have so much, we're working on sustainable funding. We're hoping a part of this project is getting people to understand that, SBI needs help, and we want to keep the legacy of Randolph alive and creating some of the great things that happen for you. Um, I had such a great time doing that and chasing after folks and helping people, pursue their goals. I'm personally passionate and been involved with SBI for the last 24 years because, stories like yours is where we want everybody to be. We want everybody to have the job that they want, be happy with their education. That's the goal. So it's great to talk to you. And I'm also excited to talk to folks that, their journey wasn't ideal. So we can learn from those things, because I know folks definitely like, well, this was good, but I could have used more of this. And, part of the situation, especially as educators, and this as a nurse taking care of, moms that are going out into the world, you can only do so much, but each experience you learn more about how to see the danger signs when things are going off the rails and how to reach out to somebody. We were talking to Hassan Rose, and he was dealing with some difficult stuff during high school. So how can we better reach folks when folks are dealing with loss right now? How many high school students are dealing with loss, as a part of their high school experience? It's got to be crazy, right?
Yeah.
So how can we learn from those lessons in the past, and how can we reach out to those kids? So like hearing Hassan's and other folks that have lost people while they're going through high school is immensely important, so that we can deal with the trauma that people are dealing with now. So I love these stories, whether they're super all the way positive, like yours sounds like.
Yeah, I got really lucky. So my story is not, it's not seen a lot, because I got super lucky. I had a really smooth transition from institution to institution.
So let me say two things about that. I'm sure luck, and we're all, I love like people that are authors and people that are inspiring when they talk. And there's this idea that if you were born in the United States, which I don't know if you were 100%.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So if you were born in the United States, like you won the lottery. I don't care if you're poor, rich, whatever. If you're born in the United States, you won the lottery, because there's a lot of places you could be born where access to education, access to help just isn't the same by a long shot. Now, if you're born in Switzerland, maybe you're a little bit luckier, but you could be born someplace really that doesn't have those same resources. So just automatically, luck plays a part in all of our stories. It's what you do with it, right? Like, do you take advantage of it? So there's a lot to be said for the luck part of it, but and being fortunate that maybe part of your high school journey wasn't going through a pandemic. And certainly there's a lot of high school students that are saying, man, I'm very unlucky for this situation. And me myself, I've had down moments going through this pandemic. My business has totally been shuttered because there's no events going on, there's no income coming in. And while that creates a lot of different challenges, both for me and for my staff that I work with, there is so much opportunity being created now. And part of that, I'm trying to provide opportunity to my staff and sort of talk about that there are things that are coming to, and that's part of the challenge of the moment. But I'm inspired. My schedule is full, even though income might not necessarily be coming in. It's hard to fit everything into my days, and I'm inspired. It's a little tough for my wife, who doesn't have the same sort of feeling about things that I do. But, we had a great conversation yesterday. I'm trying to make time to make sure I'm talking to her and get her motivated as well. It's a moment where if people can see the possibility in it, yes, there's a lot of difficult things going on. But like we were talking before this call, I think the healthcare system is going to improve after this is all done. So there's always opportunity in the moment, and you can focus on the negative thing happening. You can focus on the challenge, or you can work hard in the moment and take advantage of the possibilities and the opportunities that are there and relevant. And we have to do that, or else we're going to be stuck, right?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely had that mindset, I think, since high school. I've always looked at the positive and seeing what can I make out of this, right? So I look at how can I make lemonade off of lemons.
So I guarantee that's the deal, right? That's what that's what makes your story, and that's what makes you happy, because a teacher can only do much, an institution can only do much. A lot of it is on you. And that's really important for people to know too, because I think a lot of people get into like the blame game situation, and, yes, could it be better? Yes. Could it, this be more optimal? Yes, but what do you do
What
with
can
it?
we do moving forward? Like sometimes it's so easy to dwell on what's wrong, but we need to start thinking about how can we fix the situation that we're currently in.
All right. So now I know you went to Gettysburg College, and that's personally exciting to me because I've been on the Gettysburg College campus many times with our college workshops, and it's one of the places that we have a partnership with. If Daryl gets to see this, which I'm definitely sending this to Daryl afterwards, right? Obviously you applied to other colleges, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm assuming you got into other colleges because you're amazing.
Yeah, I did.
Tell us about the journey to Gettysburg. What influenced your decision-making process? How did you decide on Gettysburg? Tell us about the financial aid aspects. I want to hear some of the nitty-gritty details because I think those will help people in the journey right now.
Yeah, so my senior year, it was time to start thinking about where I wanted to go. I knew for a fact that I didn't want to stay in New York City. I definitely wanted to go somewhere else. I wanted to go away for school. So I spoke to Thompson about it at the time, and then he actually gave me a list of schools that he wanted me to research online and see if I would be interested or not. It just so happened that that fall, we went to visit Gettysburg College with the school. So we had a whole college trip. It was an overnight trip. So I got to Gettysburg College, and as soon as I got to the campus, I felt so comfortable in the campus. I really saw myself there. My host, she was really, really awesome, really welcoming. And when speaking to the students, they were so excited to meet me and to have, like a Dominican from the Bronx join their school, join their institution. So everyone made me feel so, not only did they make me feel wanted, but they made me feel like I would be an asset to their college. So I felt so good on that campus. And after that overnight visit, I definitely saw myself there, and I saw myself just being a part of a Gettysburg family. So I applied, and I was like crossing my fingers and hoping that I got into the institution. So your mic, I think, is off. I can't hear you.
Thank you. So thank you. So you got into Gettysburg, you wanted to go to Gettysburg. That's part of the story. But what about the other places that you applied to? And tell us about like the journey to actually saying yes to Gettysburg, the financial aid kind of piece of it. Talk to us through that.
Yeah, so we did visit other schools. So I went and I was able to see different schools, but they didn't give me the same vibe that Gettysburg gave me. Like the atmosphere in those schools was different for me. I felt like that's not where I wanted to be when I went to the other schools. And at the same time, I had Gettysburg in the back of my head and it wouldn't leave. I knew that that school was going to be the school for me. Of course, I'm from the Bronx. My mom does not have all the money to cover my tuition, so I was going to need some sort of financial assistance. So once I applied to different institutions, the acceptance letters were coming in. I think they come in the spring at some point, like April, I think, or May.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so when the school accepts you, they give you a financial package with the acceptance letter. And we were comparing the financial packages. Some of them include grants, and that's free money that the school is giving you to join their institution. So when comparing the grants that I got from the different colleges, Gettysburg gave the biggest grant. So
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
considering that, we knew that not only did I want to go to the school, but with that grant, it showed that the school was willing to give me the support financially that I needed to go and attend that school.
Do you remember some of the other schools that you applied to?
Yeah, my second number one was Gettysburg, number two was Nazareth, and number three, I don't remember number three.
Do you remember
Oh,
what was attractive about Nazareth?
Nazareth had a really great nursing program. So I was interested in that. I was interested in that. And it was also in New York, so I would get in-state tuition.
Very important. Very cool. All right. So Gettysburg was where you wanted to go. You had the financial aid. You're going. So tell us about the summer leading up and how it all worked out freshman year. Talk to us about the lead up and the graduation from Randolph and getting to Gettysburg. Talk to us about that.
So, my time in Randolph is coming to an end, and so I was starting to get ready to go to college. I was really nervous. I'm not going to lie. I was super nervous, scared. It was the first time that I was going to move away from home. I was 18 at the time. So it was the first time that I was going to go. And so I spent the summer kind of preparing, reading all I could about the college. I was up and down the college website, reading everything. The school also had this Get Acquainted Day where all the prospective students are able to go and visit the college and meet more people. So that was awesome because I was able to bring my mom. So my
Very
mom
nice.
came and she was able to see the campus, and she was able to it gave her peace of mind, because a lot of the time, first generation college students, the parents get a little scared because they're like, oh my goodness, you're moving away. You're going to live by yourself. They're not used to it. It's not something that's common. So I was a first generation college student, and it kind of gave my mom peace of mind. And after she learned all the opportunities that I can get at the institution, she was like, okay, I can see it happening. She started to really get on board.
Oh, that's very cool. Very, very cool indeed. All right. So you're at Gettysburg, mom's on board. Tell us about the Gettysburg Experiment. What was interesting? What was exciting about Gettysburg? What was the challenges of being at Gettysburg?
So Gettysburg had this really cool program for students of color and first generation students where they're able to move into campus a few days before everyone else moves into campus. So again, you know me, I take advantage of all the programs that I could. So once I found out about that, I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. It'll help me move in earlier, get adjusted earlier. So we went a few days before moving day. I got myself settled, and I got lucky again because one of my good friends from Randolph came to Gettysburg with me. Her name is Emily Jimenez.
Yeah.
So she came to Gettysburg with me, and I asked her if she would be my roommate, and she agreed. And so we both moved in with that early move in. So we moved in together. At first, I was really scared because I'm used to New York City. There's a store down the block, a bodega down the block if I need something. But here in Gettysburg, it was a completely different story. I was just kind of in the middle of nowhere. For a city girl like me, it felt like I was in the middle of nowhere. So it was really an adjustment living in the suburbs or country life.
How did you adjust?
It took a while to adjust, but I think with having friends around me who were also from New York or big cities, we all used each other to support each other. You know, we had a group chat where we would write about things we're going through. And I also joined clubs. I was like, if I'm gonna be here, I need to just get my mind off of all of this. So I joined fun clubs. I was part of the dance team there in Gettysburg, the Black Student Union and the Latin American Student Union. So with those clubs, I was able to connect with students that look like me, who have backgrounds like me, and we all supported each other and got each other through it.
So, and let's talk to that. So, what is your background exactly so everybody knows?
So I am Dominican. Well, my parents are Dominican, but I was born and raised in the Bronx.
There's a great TikTok of just a lady being asked like where she's from, and she's like, "Oh, I'm from I don't know, New York or whatever, right?" And the usually like the white lady voice is like, "No, but like really, like where are you from?" And then
Yeah.
and then she's like in an accent, "I'm from the homeland of Vietnam," like that kind of thing. And I imagine like how many times you've probably been asked, "No, but like really, where are you from?" Like, right? It's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to Gettysburg, the students of color the population was only 8% of the whole entire campus. So there
Speak
wasn't
to it.
really many of us.
Speak to
And
it.
it was a change.
And let me just paint this picture for folks that have not, seen Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, right? So you go out there, and usually on the weekend that we're visiting the college, Randolph students, because that's like when it's, I don't know if what's that weekend? It's a big, I don't know if it's alumni coming back,
It
and
could be homecoming weekend. I think it could be.
I don't know. There's a step show. That's how a lot of our folks get jazzed up about Gettysburg to begin with, because there's students of color and there's the step show and everybody's in the dorms and they're experiencing that piece of it. But at the same time, outside of the college, like there's Civil War, Gettysburg War reenactment with a bunch of white people in Confederate uniforms walking around town. It's a big juxtaposition for cultures and where people are coming from. And there's some really good people. I don't want to paint a picture of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania as like a racist town. That being said, there's definitely something going on.
I mean, it's definitely a conservative town. If you walk through the town, you do see the Confederate flags on the windows. There was one time there was a KKK rally in the town. It's just a super conservative town. So
how did you deal with stuff like that for folks that are like, no way, I'm not going down south? I know part of Trevor's story was like, I could have been, in a place where there was riots going on. So I'm glad for where I went to college, because if I would have gone there, shit would have been going down, that kind of thing. How did you deal with all that, or did you not really it just sort of floated by, you didn't pay it to mind?
I think the really challenging thing about college was the whole freedom of speech thing. So because I went to a liberal arts school, they were super into freedom of speech. There were groups on campus that promoted, conservative views. So coming from New York, and I'm super liberal and a Democrat and stuff, I would go to school and just see these like racist things or things that I may not personally agree with. But, going to an institution like that, you have to learn to adapt to the situations that you're in. So not only just hate speech and, no, I don't agree with your views are stupid and mine are right. You have to kind of just like listen to it. Even if you don't agree with it, listen to it, see where they're coming from, and also have that sense of respect, saying like, I disagree with what you're saying. If that's what you want to believe, that's on you. I disagree. I know my views. And then just how to keep yourself centered. So, if there's a KKK rally like a few blocks away, just say, you know what, I'm not able, like, this is me. This is my own time. And you learn tips on how to care for yourself and your mental health.
Yeah, because you could get real upset and let everything slide. And again, it's not, there's challenging things that are going to happen. How do you move forward? I think about, in terms of that listening, and I think that's a big part of a college education, not to advocate college above everything else, but it is one of those things that is a part of a college education, is that diversity of view. And, I only got a couple of years of college. I did not finish college, but I've tried to educate myself, and I've stayed a part of education in general. I love teaching. I wish I would have finished my degree. I wish I would have, had a master's so I could go down the street. I'm passionate about teaching, and it's not something I can do. So again, it's like creating those opportunities for yourself and leaving things open for you to do, right? But because for whatever reason, my father was into books, I've done a lot of reading, I think I've gotten a piece of that, maybe in some cases a little bit later in life than other folks have gotten it. But part of that college piece is to be able to say, hey, what are your sources? Where are you getting this from?
Yeah, exactly. And just learning like what things make sense and what people are just kind of talking about. Like, for example, now you have certain conservative states protesting the quarantine. They don't agree with it. They're saying that the government is like overreaching and just taking too much control over their daily life. So they're protesting. And they're saying like if they get infected with the coronavirus, that's on them. That's not on the government to control that. So of course, as a nurse who's there on the front lines, that kind of like infuriates me because you're putting yourself at risk, but you're not thinking of the frontline workers who are here to help you once you end up in the hospital, and you can like really congest our hospitals. But going through all of that experience in Gettysburg has really taught me, like, sometimes you just need to care for yourself and your mental health, do what you're supposed to be doing, and just kind of not let that infuriate you or affect you. Your mic is off.
I got my kids going in and out of the doors, so I'm like trying not to muddy the broadcast. Sorry, thank you. That idea of understanding how to deal with that and how to deal with it in an educated, calm kind of way is super ideal. I love that. So I appreciate that part of your story. So before we get into like, post grad and the education that you got at John Hopkins, talk to us about, junior, senior year at Gettysburg. What do you think if somebody's looking at Gettysburg, they would really be into? What are maybe some of the negatives, if there's anything? I'd love to hear about that. And then how did you decide on John Hopkins and how to continue your education there?
So Gettysburg was cool. So I was involved in the clubs, like I said earlier, throughout the whole 4 years. And then I also needed to get a campus job because I needed to get money for my daily expenses, which could include like, I don't know, snacks, or I had to pay for your books out of pocket and stuff. So they have this campus work study where you can get a job on campus. So I got two of those work study jobs, and I was able to make enough money to kind of pay for my books and my snacks.
What were the jobs that you had on campus?
So the first one, I worked for the sociology department, where I was basically an assistant for the professor. So I made the copies, any copies that they needed, any assignments that they had, I'll post them on the online platform. And I just do stuff like that, make copies, scan things, just an assistant for the professors. And then
That's awesome. Listen, I started faxing because, and this will date me. I started faxing in 1996, right, to record companies for swag. All those kind of business administrative stuff. I still use all of that today. You can't underestimate these kind of administrative jobs, these kind of basic kind of things that other people might knock. Those are the fundamentals, and you understand how things work on a very basic level, so that later on, if you do have a big career and you're hiring, you understand what the hustle should be.
Stuff like that. I mean, the other day the printer shut down on my floor and the nurses were like going crazy, and I'm like, this is very simple. And I went and I fixed the paper jam on the printer. So I mean, any experience is good experience. I learned that from the job in the sociology department.
That's awesome.
And so the second job that I held on campus was I organized college fairs. So a lot of the alumni from Gettysburg College, whenever there was a college fair hosted in their town, then I would, get the materials prepped for them. I would email the alumni, see if they can do the college fair. I'll mail out the materials for them and then set them up, give them everything they need to help recruit students.
That's awesome. So you got these jobs, you're marching towards graduation. Tell us about that.
So Gettysburg has this thing where they highly encourage all of their students to study abroad. So my junior year came, and Gettysburg is really pushing it. All of the counselors there and your mentors, they're really pushing it like, okay, it's time. It's more of an expectation than a choice. So I went and I had the meeting with the study abroad office, and I told them, this is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the health field. What program do you think works best for me? So she suggested the program in Copenhagen, Denmark, which is in Europe, is one of the Nordic countries.
Yeah, yeah.
Norway and Sweden and all of that. I didn't know what Denmark was when she first told me, so I had to like research where this is.
I still would have trouble finding it on a map. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But I know they're doing well. Denmark, countries like Switzerland, they're the benefits in the healthcare system are a little bit more prepared for all of this than we are.
For sure. And they're really into public health and preventing diseases, not just combating diseases when they come, which is really awesome that they do.
So let me ask you this. So I heard you when you said they were sort of pushing this study abroad. So you took the study abroad. You went to Denmark. Was this 1 semester or 2 semesters?
So I only went for 1 semester, but you do have the option to go away for 2 semesters. It could be in the same country or you can go for another country. I know I have a friend that did 1 semester in Japan and loved it so much that he decided to stay for another semester. So he stayed in Japan for a whole entire year.
You want to shout out that friend? Who you talking about?
His name is John Barley.
All
He
right, so-
teaches he did teach English in Japan after he graduated. So he went back even after.
That's amazing. And I love those stories of people finding their careers and stuff. Christopher, and I'm losing the last name, he went to China, and I know that he found success over there. And Ines Ba also went to China, and he's here, and he didn't stay over there, but I know he got some great business experience from these trips overseas. Just great things that they're learning from and can bring back. So was that your experience of it? Was there a financial hardship? How did that all work?
So the way it all worked, the same thing that you would pay for a year at Gettysburg is the same thing that you would pay to study abroad. There's no more or less money that you need. The only money that you would need to come up with is the flight, the plane ticket, but that's also subtracted from your tuition. So you would pay less tuition.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And you had a pretty good financial package at that point. Do you remember how much you were paying out of pocket?
Out of pocket, I think I paid maybe 5,000 or 6,000, something like that per semester.
Per semester. So was that like close to 12,000 a year?
Yeah, around there. Mm-hmm.
Which is a lot, but
it's a lot. The institution is like a $60,000 a year institution or something like that. So it definitely helped.
So now you're graduating from Gettysburg and you're going to pursue even more education and even more loans, right? So tell us what convinced you to make that decision.
I mean, we can backtrack a little bit. So in Gettysburg, I studied health sciences, and then I minored in women's gender and sexuality because I was really interested in women's health. So I combined the health sciences with women's studies so that I can have a focus on women's health. So as I started to get closer and closer to senior year, I was thinking more career-wise. What did I want to do? So I went back to nursing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm meant to be a nurse. I already studied abroad. I learned so much about the health system over there in Europe. I want to do something to change some of the issues that we have here in America. And I also wanted to help women. That is what I wanted to do. So I knew my purpose in life was to help women and help the health of women and better the health of women. So I went and I researched what's the best way to do that. And I'm like, oh, nursing would be perfect. It put me right there. And I'll have my own patients. I can give them the health care that they deserve. And if you look, there's a disparity between the health care that women of color are getting and the health care that white women are getting.
Right.
So, and that one of the reasons for that disparity is because there aren't enough people of color in those positions. There aren't enough women of color that are nurses, doctors, nurse practitioners, any of those healthcare positions. There aren't enough people of color. So from there, I decided, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to be a woman of color working as a nurse. So I already got my bachelor's, and they have some accelerated bachelor nursing programs. But because I already got a bachelor's from Gettysburg, I'm like, let me look into some accelerated master's programs. And a lot of Gettysburg students go to Johns Hopkins. So I researched their program, and I thought that was the best program that worked for me. So it was a 2-year program.
When were you researching this? What year in Gettysburg?
My senior year.
So your senior year, so you're making these decisions. Was there a thought in your mind about not pursuing higher?
No. No, I knew that once my time in Gettysburg got to an end, I knew that I wanted to pursue higher education because there wasn't anything else that I wanted to do. For me, at least, I knew my passion was to be a nurse. So I went straight to school because I knew that was my passion in life. But there are some people that they graduate with undergrad and they go get a job, get experience. They might love the job and not want to continue their education, or they might want to continue the education so that they can pursue a passion somewhere else.
And what do you think the value is just doing it straight like you did?
The good thing is I'm done with school, so I don't have at 24, I had my bachelor's and my master's. I was done with school and I already started my career. So that was definitely a benefit for me.
And how's the financial side of that working out? I know Presbyterian Hospital is a pretty prestigious hospital. How did you? Well, I know we haven't talked about the John Hopkins story, so let's talk about John Hopkins. I know you said people at Gettysburg had a lot of them already went to John Hopkins. You researched it. That was the place. So how was your experience at John Hopkins?
So at first I wasn't going to apply because Johns Hopkins is the #1 school of nursing in America, like the #1 master's program. So at first I wasn't going to apply because I wasn't confident enough. I didn't think I was going to get into the program. And again, I spoke to my mom and my mom was like, you have to do it. You have to try. It's not only about grades, but it's about everything else that you can bring to the table. So I applied. I'm like, let's just see what happens. And I did. I applied to a couple institutions. It wasn't just Hopkins. But I did get into Hopkins. That was my #1 choice. So financial wise, the grad school, the master's degree is one of the most expensive degrees because they don't offer a lot of financial aid for masters like they do for bachelor's or for a doctorate. A doctorate.
Yeah, typically anything post-grad is going to be expensive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So were you able to get any aid for your degree?
I got some aid from the school. The program itself is pretty expensive. I think it can go up to I think right now it's like $80,000 a year or something like that.
Ooh.
And I was there for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it got pretty expensive. The school did give me some aid from that money. I think I got maybe like $10,000 or something. But the government has this Grad Plus loan that I took out. And from the Grad Plus loan, I was able to pay off the rest of the tuition and also cover the costs of living.
That's great. And I'm hoping beyond hope for you and all of our other courageous folks on the front line that these politicians do something to give some kind of forgiveness on these loans. Because what would we do? What would we do? What would we do if you weren't there to take care of our women in particular? I mean, it's just, things like teachers and doctors are underappreciated and undervalued, and we got to do a better job as a society to support.
Especially the teachers. The teachers, they work super hard. They work so hard that they really need some sort of aid.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So let's let's get into it. So what was the experience at Johns Hopkins? What was the positives of that experience? We talked about the high cost. Did they deliver some value to you?
So after Gettysburg, I knew I was ready to move back to some sort of city. So Johns Hopkins is in Baltimore. So I was excited because I was going to go back to the city. Except Baltimore is a little rough around the edges. I
Yes,
was
it
not
is. Yes,
prepared
it
for
is.
that. But it was good because I
And
was
John
studying
Hopkins
health.
for anybody that's only been on the waterfront of Baltimore is not on the waterfront.
No, it's not. It's a little rough. But as far as the institution went, Gettysburg really prepared me to be at Hopkins at a master's level. I felt super prepared for my classes. I already knew what was required of me throughout my stay there. So I was doing really, really well at Hopkins as far as my GPA went. I studied really hard and I had a really smooth transition. So that was another benefit of going to grad school right after undergrad. I already had that school mindset on. It was just another year. So through that, I also got involved at Hopkins again. So I got a job there where I worked as a birth companion. So I would help women who can't afford a doula because they can get really expensive. Doulas are people who support you during your labor.
I'm glad you
Um,
explained that because I was going to have to ask. Yeah.
yeah, they're women who support you during your labor, who will give you massages and words of encouragement while you're laboring, but they're really expensive. So Johns Hopkins had this really good program where the nursing students will go and will work as doulas for these women who cannot afford it. For me, I worked with women who didn't speak English. So I would go and I would be their advocate and I would translate for them and I would help them tremendously during this labor process.
That sounds really rewarding.
Yeah, it was really awesome, and that's how I knew that I did want to work with women, and I was where I needed to be. Hopkins delivers over 1,000 clinical hours, so I was able to try out different specialties wherever I wanted. If
You
you
want to talk?
spent
You want to talk about some of those different specialties? I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, so every semester they put you in a clinical and you go to that clinical maybe 2 or 3 times a week, like 2 times a week, and they put these nurses in different specialties every semester so you can see what you want to do after you graduate. So one of the specialties is pediatrics, so you work just with children for the semester. At the same time they supplement that clinical with a class on pediatric health. So that's how nursing school works. So there was another semester where I was in a eye and ear floor, so people who are getting eye surgery and ear surgeries and throat surgeries. But then I knew that wasn't for me. I was like, this is cool, but I don't see myself doing this. They also put us in a general hospital floor. We call it med surge. We did a public health clinical where we worked with homeless people there in Baltimore area. So they do different clinicals in all these different specialties. And once I did the OB clinical where I worked with moms and babies, I said yes. This is exactly the specialty where
This is
I
what you
want.
were born to do.
Yeah, I said yes. This is it. And I was also working as a birth companion at the time, so I was immersed in the women's health field for sure.
Were they compensating you in a way where you were able to start paying back your loans right away, or not really?
Yeah, I the birth companion job was more like the works very similar to the
Work
work
study,
study.
yeah.
So they weren't really paying me too much money. As far as the loans went, I really started paying it once I got my first job as a registered nurse. That's when I started putting money towards my loans.
All right, so graduation day at Gettysburg. Congratulations on that accomplishment. Graduation day at Johns Hopkins. As you're leading up to your graduation, what's your thinking process as you're approaching real world? Now it's been 6 years of school after many, many years of primary and high school education. So it's just been school, 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 a little bit of work experience, obviously internships, I'm sure, all that kind of stuff. But the real world is coming, the end of school. How are you feeling and how are you transitioning?
So, at first I took it kind of hard because this is my first time being an adult. I didn't have to worry about anything. I was just in school. In school, they cover everything. All you have to do is study. You know, you don't really have more responsibilities than studying.
Were you always living on campus?
Once I moved to Baltimore, I lived on campus for a year, and then the next year I got an apartment with some of the other nursing students.
But Gettysburg, you lived on campus the whole time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how was
I
that experience? Did you enjoy living on campus the whole time? I've been talking to people about the cost of it, and a lot of people move off campus because it's typically cheaper and you can still get a lot of the campus experience. So it's interesting to hear from somebody that stayed on campus the whole 4 years, if you felt like it was worth it and all that jazz.
Yeah, for me, it was worth it because a lot of the housing that was off campus was kind of far from the academic buildings. So for me, I decided to stay in the dorms and just walk to class. That maybe it was like a 5-10 minute walk. But if I moved off campus, the walk was more like 20-30 minutes, which I didn't want to do.
And considering that there might have been some other concerns with that walk, I can understand that, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
in terms of the housing situation at John Hopkins, so you're now living sort of on your own, so you're getting a piece of the adult experience. So you're approaching official adulthood, right? School is ending. So how did you transition once you graduated from John Hopkins?
So I knew that I wanted to come back to New York. So after almost 6 years away, I think it was time to come back to New York, and I wanted to help women in New York. That was my ultimate goal. So closer to graduation, my graduation was in May. So around March, I started to apply to hospitals here. I applied to NewYork-Presbyterian, Mount Sinai. I applied to NYU. They have a hospital here, just a whole bunch of different hospitals, and see where I end up, because I was really strict about my specialty. I really wanted to be in my specialty. A lot of new nurses start in like a general hospital floor and then they move up to their specialty. But I held myself at a standard and I said, no, I need my specialty as soon as I graduate.
Now it's tough, I think, and you talk about women, and I think that there's a whole nother conversation that could be had about the economics and the power of women in the economy, right? I don't know if you're familiar. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, like, if you give a business loan to a female, she puts more money back into the economy. You're familiar with those studies, that kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think, the health of women, the financial health of women, and why I'm bringing this in is because I think typically as women come into the workforce, just along what you're saying, more often than their male counterparts, they're settling for maybe a lower role or lower pay. Who's giving you the advice, or how did you feel like, hey, I'm going to stick to this, I'm going for this kind of position? What was that position that you were looking for? What was the pay that you were looking for? I think those details are interesting.
So where do I start? So the position that I had, you need at least a year of experience to work. But I was fresh out of school, so I just applied again. I felt in my heart I had more to offer than just that year of nursing experience. So in my resume, I put a whole load of experience that I can offer you. Things that may not be considered traditional experience. Like, for example, throughout college, I worked at a summer camp, a sleepaway camp, and I was a group leader at that sleepaway camp. So I was responsible to care for all of these kids and all of those counselors. All of them were under my watch as their leader. So I put that experience in my resume, and I told the nurse managers, listen, yes, I don't have that year of experience, but this is the experience that I do have, and this is what I do bring to the table. And I think your institution will benefit off of having me. So being like that and just being confident and just knowing your worth and knowing that that institution will benefit off of you, it really gears them to not only hire you, but give you the pay that you deserve.
Did you have peers, coming out of Gettysburg and John Hopkins that were also kind of supporting you? Did you have like your support group and people that were empowering you and talking to you that way to force you or was that all just you and your spirit and mama's teaching?
It was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So Hopkins was interesting because I went straight from undergrad, but the majority of the students didn't. The majority of the students, this is their second career. This is a career change for them. So the average age of the program was closer to 30. That was the average age of the students, and I started the program at 22. So I was a little bit younger than a lot of my peers, but being around them and being surrounded by that, and Hopkins as an institution is super like elite, if you for lack of a better word. They're very
absolutely
competitive and elite. So being in that environment and around those peers definitely gave me the push and the confidence that I needed to work for Presbyterian.
Yeah, because it's very mature to come out and say, hey, this is what I want, and I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm going to get it because I know that I have the qualifications. No matter how you define it, I know I have the qualifications to garner that role. And I've talked to folks, in different industries, and especially when it comes to women, like you got to negotiate that first salary because all the salary raises and all the future pay is going to be based off of that first entry into the industry, right? It's going to be multiplications or factors of that. So I think that's amazing. That's an amazing story. So where did you get your first job and how what's the lead into what you're doing now?
So after that, I knew I wanted to work. So I applied, like I said earlier, I applied to different hospitals here in New York. And then I got a call back from NYU. And then I also got a call back from NewYork-Presbyterian. And they both kind of interviewed me and gave me their offers. And after going into the interview and touring the units, I felt like NewYork-Presbyterian was the better option for me because it allowed room for growth. So with a master's, the nice part about my route was that I have a master's in nursing. So that sets me apart because with that master's, you don't have to be a traditional bedside nurse. You can use that master's to do other things in nursing. You can teach, you can become a nurse manager, you can become a nurse educator, you can do a whole variety of things with that degree. So my ultimate goal is to be a nurse manager and run my own unit.
That's awesome.
So with NewYork-Presbyterian, I'm able to transfer from institution to institution, gain different experience in all of these different institutions so that once I'm ready to take that leap and become a nurse manager, I can use all that experience under my belt. And I can work for the different hospitals in that NewYork-Presbyterian enterprise.
So how long have you been in this job now?
Almost 2 years.
That's crazy. That's wonderful. All right. I really appreciate all of this information. I feel like I get to live the story with you. It's really cool. Just kind of wrap things up. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about in your story before we get into just kind of recounting those takeaways that we want people to take away from this.
I think I just wanted to say that whoever wants to go into nursing, or if you have any more questions about me or my story, definitely feel free to reach out. I think Cameron's going to put my Facebook link there, so I would be super happy to answer any questions. Of course, I told you guys a lot of it, but there's still more to tell. So I'm happy to help because when I was in that position, I didn't have anyone to reach out to, and I really would have loved somebody where I can just ask a whole bunch of questions to. So I'm definitely offering myself to anybody who would like to take the opportunity.
So I love that. Thank you for giving permission to folks. If you want to reach out, you want to learn more about nursing, you want to learn more about Gettysburg, John Hopkins, that kind of process, that kind of career track. I'm sure Jasmine has other things that she's interested outside of nursing. I don't know if you want to talk about anything. I know you're probably, and especially right now, you're busy and probably too tired to do everything, but we all have more than one thing. So I don't know if there's anything else that you got going on that you want to talk about aside from nursing. But if not, we'll get into the takeaways.
I mean, the only thing that I would like to know is through my education, I didn't really get a lot of education about like investing my money or doing things like that. I think that's something that definitely lacked in my education. So any resources that can help me learn how to do things like that will definitely be useful.
All right. So I'm going to hook you up with a guy I know. He's a fiduciary. So if you're somebody that's getting into the career world, and there's lots of people that advertise that they are financial advisors, right? So there's financial advisor, and you have alumni folks. Trevor Cassaberry's smart guy. He's got this company called Cassaberry Consulting. Can hook you up. He's doing some stuff. But what I would really recommend is the first person that you probably talk to before you talk to anybody. They have in their title a fiduciary. A lot of these companies have a responsibility to not screw you over, to work in your best interest. But if somebody has a fiduciary title, that is like sort of the high watermark in the financial industry. They are like a doctor, kind of sworn to do no harm kind of thing. They can't do things that are not in your best interest. So a fiduciary is a great person to have that beginning conversation with. So there's a guy in my Master Networks group. His name is Christopher Calabro. So I'll tag him in this, and I'll make sure that you guys connect. But definitely utilize the resources of the alumni and folks that you know. Christopher, who I mentioned to you before, who went to China, he got early in on the Bitcoin thing and made a ton of money. I wish I was in on that thing. I mean, he bought Bitcoin for very cheap and it skyrocketed. Right now, a great app that everybody can utilize if you want to get into the stock market. And I know a lot of people, the stock market, it just dipped. I was in the stock market. I'm not by any means wealthy, but I had a few $1,000s in the stock market. It dipped. The money that I had in there went down by 2000. It's almost already made its way back. There's going to be things like that in the market. If you have your money saved, you can take advantage of the dips and be ready for it and buy things when they're cheap. Whatever you buy, you want to hold on to it for the long term. Your education in medicine really has prepared you for investing in a way that many people will never understand. So you can, not that you have a ton of spare time, but you can sort of look at some of these companies, and because of your unique experience in the industry and your day-to-day use with medicine and the medical products, you have a view. You can look at and say, is this a company that I think is going to be around in 5 or 10 years? And because of what they're doing right now, they're only going to grow. They're only going to do better. So looking at it like that, my investment advice, and I'm not any kind of investment professional, but my investment advice is that you put your money into the market. It's almost always going to go up. Obviously, there's risk. It is like putting your money on the roulette table or the casino table. The only difference is you're betting on a business, not on a number coming up. So if the business is sound, if the business is built on sound principles, if the business has good leaders, so you know what you're reading along the lines of, are they running the hospital the right way? Are they making the right decisions for people? And so for me, like I invested in a company called Tesla that does the electric cars, and it's very volatile, but it's making a ton of money. It already made money that it lost from the recession. And it's a company that, again, this is not me advocating for Tesla, but just why I personally, invested in them. They're creating a technology that for sure is going to be used in the future. And not only are they doing something that is going to benefit their own product, it's going to benefit a lot of other products. So if you see something like that, in the medicine industry, you're using it firsthand. That's probably a good bet. It's much better than just saying, "Oh, there's a shiny thing over there, and I'm gonna bet on that," because you don't know what's going to happen in an individual company. And I think anybody in across the financial industry is going to say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Tesla could fail tomorrow and I could lose the $400 that I invested in the stock. It's up to like $700, $800 now, but there's no guarantee. You can lose your money tomorrow.
Yeah.
But usually over the long term, the stock market goes up and you got to do things based on your risk. And then before you even think about the stock market and all that kind of stuff, saving your money, saving 50% of your salary if you can, saving money, taking longer time to spend it. So making sure that the money stays in your account longer duration before spending it. Because the more money you have, period.
Yeah, I mean, saving is okay, especially as a nurse. Like, we can do OT whenever we need it. There's always room to make money. It's just investing your money and making it grow.
So the biggest investments that I think you, as the future mogul that you're going to be, like, I know that nurse manager is the goal that you stated, but I also know that you said you wanted to make women's health better. And that seems like the overarching goal. And you can be a nurse manager, and you can also start up another company that is all about, building resources for women of color to come into the industry. And what makes that easier is when you have capital, right? When you have capital, and sort of the secret, that all these financial folks have is that they're spending money, but they're not spending their own money. And banks give you money when you have money. It's sort of a weird thing. And I'm sure you've experienced it before, with loans and all that kind of thing. The more money you have, the more money they're willing to give you. But that means that you can't spend the money in your savings account. That means you take money on a loan to buy a house, which is an asset. But you don't empty your bank account to do that. You have your capital so that when the pandemic comes, you have money to pay the mortgage and all that stuff. You don't ever empty your bank account. You use the capital to get more money. That's really complicated, and it's a very basic understanding of it because I don't have any crazy complicated understanding of it, but I know that the longer you hold on to your money, and the principles that I'm teaching my 13-year-old daughter, who babysits for us over the summer, and is saving 50% of her earnings, she has more money than I do because I have more debt than she has.
Of course, I think that's where I'm at right now. I mean, I did my whole school thing. I got the job of my dreams. So now I'm kind of just learning how to maneuver this adult world for sure. Like, as far as buying a house, which will be my step later on, and starting a family and all of that. Right now, I'm just kind of learning how to maneuver this world outside of school. Even though I've been out of school for 2 years, I'm still learning.
We're going to definitely get you connected to some folks that know what they're doing on the financial side. If there's anybody that deserves help, it's you, who's helping so many people. So that's really great. I truly believe good begets good. So I know a lot of good is coming to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So talk to us about our takeaways. What were the 2 takeaways that you wanted people to take away from this?
The first takeaway is just stay home. Follow the quarantine efforts that are put in place. Okay, it definitely helps make our job a lot easier when we have less and less sick people that we have to help. We can focus more on the patients that really need the support. Don't go out unless you have an essential errand. Okay, be super careful. If you're going out, wear a mask, bring hand sanitizer everywhere that you go. Sanitize your hands as much as you can, but only go out for essential items. Stay home. please.
That's awesome. All right. And then I know that we talked about just in terms of like those takeaways on the education side, be open to opportunity, working hard to achieve your goals, working through the adversity. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I know you're exhausted from your long days in the hospital. Thank you for the work you're doing. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have to go get ready for my shift.
Oh, all right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm looking forward to bringing more stories of alumni to people, and we'll definitely get our alumni to connect with you, Jasmine. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. All right.